Yeah, I extended for a few weeks so Kenny, the crowd, and I could go home via Europe, and we hitched a ride with 35 Squadron from Vung Tau to Saigon, Tonsanoop, and we were waiting for a Kiwi Bristol freighter, colloquially known as a Bristol Frightener, 40,000 rivets in close formation. And we were just sitting somewhat hungover from all the farewell parties we'd had. And the Kiwi SAS patrol we knew came up and said, yeah, come on boys, you're with us. So we hopped in the freighter and we were taken down to Changi, which was a Royal Air Force base at that stage. And then we hung around for a while and hitched a ride on a VC-10 to Gan, then Bahrain, Akrotiri and Crete to Brize Norton in the UK. And then we had quite a few weeks around Europe. We crisscrossed the UK and we crisscrossed Europe, met a few friends there, and got back to Australia with about $1 between us. and then we, in fact, it was funny, we got back to Butterworth. We hadn't had a haircut for quite a while. And the air movements bloke said, you won't get on this bloody aircraft to get a haircut. We said, oh, where's the nearest Qantas office? So we went over the island to buy a ticket home and came back, went and found a barber, got a haircut and came back and took the C-130 home, so we were pretty skint. And then I got home, Mum and Dad had been looking after the MG, dusted that off, and then down to Fairburn and back to 5 Squadron. And that was probably July 71, and immediately got sent to the west to work with the SAS. Came back, got sent up to Cape York to help de-arm 2 World War II Bell Air Cobras. I was only one of the pilots, you know. Took an armament team up there, up near Cape, probably about 70 nautical miles southeast of Thursday Island, Horn Island. Then I did about 6 weeks at Williamtown on a search and rescue chopper, and then quite a few Army support jobs in Shoalhaven Bay, and then joined 9 Squadron at Amberley when it returned from Vietnam. It got back in November. I think your father would have been on that. And then Crowd and I turned up early January, and then did a year there, got married mid-year, and then got posted to Richmond as the Air Force's first and instant expert in rigging of external loads. Was in that for a year, and then went to Patuxent River US Navy Test Pilots course for a year, and about 3 or 4 months at the Naval Air Test Centre, then back to the Aircraft Research Unit at Laverton, then outside Melbourne, flying fixed wing and rotary wing, and then got an instructor's course, which probably shouldn't have happened, but I did, and went to Pierce for about 2.5, almost 3 years over at West on the Mackie instructing. Then from there to Butterworth, CO of a transport support flight, had about 4 or 5 DC-3s and 2 helos. Then we swapped 4 or 5 Goonie birds for 2 caribous, and had to go back to Australia, do a short caribou conversion, and then back up there, and mid-82 back to Australia. In between times had a son in Pax River in Maryland and a daughter over in Perth, and then came back to Canberra just in time to have a daughter in Canberra and then a son about 15 months later. And then staff work in Canberra, then staff college, then to Pentagon for 3 years, back to Canberra, senior staff college, Joint Services Staff College, then on the staff at the Air Force Command Staff course. Then I retired, well, I attempted retirement, moved to Newcastle with the 4 kids. 2 went to primary school, 2 went to high school, And then we had the recession we had to have, so I ended up getting an offer from the Air Force, well, not from the Air Force, from an old SAS mate to work at the Warfare Centre at Williamtown, which I did for a number of years, part-time reserve. Meanwhile, built 2 warehouses and a home, and then was asked if I was interested in joining the fighter wing there to help with the transition from the Mackie to the new Hawk. And so I did that, and left that then left there 2002, and went back instructing at Tamworth on the CT4 and the Cap 10, and then had a successful retirement. Well, yes, in terms of just pure flying, the Mackie was really nice, but I would have loved to have flown the Mirage, but it was a bit of a firecracker and beautiful handling. But I really did enjoy operating the Huey, and I think the reason, and most of the blokes felt that way, dreadful flying qualities and performance compared to, say, Mirage or whatever, speed and range and payload, pretty pathetic, but you're actively involved with the people you're supporting. You're eyeball to eyeball with them, you're eyeball to eyeball with the enemy. You can see them, and in many ways it's probably similar performance flight envelope-wise as, say, a SOT with Camel or something, something like that. But far more reliable and better armed. But you did all sorts of jobs. You rescued people, whether it was in Vietnam or in Australia. You could do so much with it, and it was a pretty simple aircraft, complex mechanically, but it wasn't complex avionics-wise. But it was a lot of fun. I noticed a big cultural difference on the average between the average character on a Mirage versus the average character on an F-18. It's a different culture, and I suppose the Mirage was such a handful, you had to make all your decisions before you, and it wasn't as, it didn't have the multi-role capability that the Hornet did, and it was all analogue. And you really had to have everything, and you had to make the decision right now, not yesterday. Not tomorrow. And whereas the F-18 blokes, and I think it's a general observation that in, say, the Mirage days, on the Huey days, the Air Force said, here's the basic tools, here's what you can't do, and this is the preferred way of doing it. It's pretty simple. And if you come across a situation and you don't follow the standard procedure, just be prepared to defend yourself, because everything was analogue. Now with digital, you write code and you keep writing it till it's perfect. And so I think that culture has slipped through, plus, say, an F-18 or, say, the new Joint Strike Fighter. They've got so much capability, and they suit a person who's grown up in a digital culture rather than an analogue culture. So it's, but I was very impressed with the way that they looked after their own and the way they trained. It was really good, and I think their record proves it. They do very well in international exercises. They have a rotational program. They try and stagger it across the wing, and they approach the edge of the boundary. They get up close to it, then the hairs start sticking up on the back of the neck, as Paul Devine would say, and then you just back off a bit, and that's how they did it. And it shows. Pretty small outfit, but a pretty good one.